Okay, episode 18. Bit of a special one this time because it's not very often you have an author in the house. Chris Saunderson, welcome to you to the Football Journals podcast.
Hi Lee, nice to be here.
We spoke 2 weeks ago at the boxing.
That's right, it was a great night.
Well done to Fraser, by the way.
Yeah, man, shout out.
Absolute shout out to Fraser. Put on a show. We spoke at the boxing. You told me that you had a football book to do with mental health. Like, I'm all for that. As I spoke to you just before, we said the last episode that Murray mental health. In this episode, we'll speak a bit about Murray mental health just shortly. Them guys will actually be in our next episode. But your football book is about mental health as well as football. Yeah. Bit about your football journey. You dropped me off the final draft a couple of days ago. I've been whizzing through it the last couple of nights in between kind of kids and work and things like that, as you do. There's some cracking quotes in there. We'll go through it in a little bit. So the main kind of things I've got written down for you, Chris, are you work for Highland News Media.
Highland News and Media, aye.
Yeah. Former sports reporter.
Yeah, many years ago I was kind of the main sports reporter for the Northern Scot, kind of pre Craig Christie era. Yep. Craig's the main man now, but I was kind of forerunner.
Okay. You are a bagman at Falkburst, sorry?
Falkburst FC, I'm the physio, and I made my debut last night. I got to run on the pitch with a bag. Somebody had hurt their shoulder, so I kind of got to manipulate his shoulder a wee bit and then put some spray in it, so I felt like the dog's bollocks at that.
Love it. Queen of the South fan?
Yes, all my life, and will be to my dying day.
Murray Mental Health Football Club team member? Yeah.
Started off writing about them actually, and then got to know them, and I thought, I've got to join these boys, they're brilliant. Yep. So aye.
And finally, author?
Well, that sounds a bit strange because it's not out yet, and I'm 55, coming 56, and it's the first book I've written.
Yep.
So I mean, I've written stories all my life, but only in the newspaper, so nothing more than 1,000 words, and this is 30,000 words.
Within the first few pages of your book, you say, I think it's the first page of your book, you actually say that you had two ambitions in life. One was to be a professional football player, and the other was to write a book. So that first one kind of takes me into my first question. How good a football player were you as a kid?
I was enthusiastic. I loved my football. I was committed. I would turn up training, turn up games all the time. Probably didn't have enough confidence in myself as a footballer. I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm more confident now than the fact that the body is kind of given up in terms of being a footballer. But so I was enthusiastic and decent enough, but no world beaten. So,
did you play for school teams, junior teams, anything like that?
I played school. I love my football at school. Actually, I had a brilliant Lochside Primary School. My head teacher, he was a good footballer, and he coached the team, and then just played youth football, and then Sunday league, Saturday league as well. Until I moved up here, and then it was just welfare league up here for a while. You
mentioned in your book that you think your brother was a more talented footballer than
he was. He was naturally more gifted. He was just a better on the ball, classy midfielder, but he was a lazy wee arse.
Yeah, you almost like you don't say it directly, but you imply that he was more talented, but you were harder working.
If I'd had his talent, I would have gone further in football because I was more dedicated, and I would train, I would turn up, every week, whether I was on the bench, which was most of the time. But I
Position?
Well, primary school I was right back, loved right back, and then for a period in Sunday League I kind of got delusions of grandeur and I switched to striker. And I talk about it in the book. When I used to play for a team called Elo Park in the Dumfries Sunday League, which was a factory team, but I never actually worked for the factory. But me and my brother played in the same team, and my old boy was manager for a while. And I say this one season I was striker, scored 7 goals before Christmas, so I was flying, brilliant. And then by the end of the season I was on 8. So that was kind of the end of my days as a striker. And then I went back to being defender. At the moment I play left back for Murray Mental Health, but I can't play right back or centre half.
Yeah. one of the things I like to think, I've noticed it myself, for people who've played football for their youth, right through now when they're an adult, later on in life, do you feel the game slows down, or do you feel you read the game better? Which one?
I'm definitely reading the game better.
Yeah,
I've got, I've got the experience of watching and playing now, albeit my body physically can't do stuff. I can't get up and down the pitch. I can barely get up and down the penalty box. But I feel actually I can read the game now, and I've got experience, and I'm a good talker now on the pitch.
Yeah,
I was quiet as a mouse when I was young. I wouldn't have said boo to a goose, and I wouldn't have been a shouter on the pitch. But now I'm a big shouter because there's a lot of young boys that I play with at Murray Mental Health, and
you must be half decent, Chris, because they've got a cracking team. Some of the players like DD and things like that, like fantastic players. Like,
in fact, actually, some decent players.
Yeah,
some really good players, and they're a good bunch of lads. And just the camaraderie of being back involved in a football team, with Murray Mental Health and on the sidelines with Fockerbars, is just give me a right buzz again, because I miss my football for a lot of times.
Well, we'll talk about it, but it's about staying in the game, isn't it? Massive, huge. Okay, football idol growing up. George Cloy, who was a massive Queen of the South legend. I just love George. Tommy Bryce, he was another one, Queen of the South striker. And the national level, I did like Joe Jordan. I thought he was a fantastic forward. Ferocious.
Just terrorised defenders. But as I played defence as well, I did like Alan Hansen. Thought he was class.
Yeah.
But lots of kind of heroes.
Alan Hansen was streets ahead for his time. Alan Hansen in the modern day would be seen as your Virgil van Dijk.
That's what the boy that I say, he's, talk about playing it out for the back, he was doing that in the 70s, 80s.
Yep.
He was class.
He was, and he complemented some rough players in that Liverpool team. He made likes of Souness look a better player than he actually was, because when you've got classy players around rough players, it makes the rough players look better technically.
Definitely.
And
although I think Souness, he gets a rep as being quite a rough one, and certainly when he was playing with Rangers, he had some horrendous sending off. But I've seen some of the old videos of him at Liverpool, and he was quite a classy player in his day, but he kind of got the rep as being quite a hard man. And I've seen some of his tackles as well, and he was a rough diamond, shall we say.
And with this Liverpool side, with how great they were in the 70s and kind of early 80s, then it never really transponded through to Scotland, did it? We never really hit the heights with it, considering the players that we had at Liverpool, Man United,
no, I always
Celtic
thought
and Rangers.
Because growing up, I was born in 68, so teams of the late 70s, early 80s, I was just sort of entering my teenage years, and we should have done better than we did at national level. It's one thing I devote a kind of chapter in the book about watching Scotland when I was younger, and how in 78, we went to the World Cup thinking we could actually win it. Yeah. And that was serious then,
Yeah. We made a song and everything.
I know. It was wild, And we probably could have if they just believed, but apart from that game against Holland, the 78 World Cup was rubbish.
Yeah, poor results against poor teams, good results against good teams. It's the same old Scotland, and it's always going to be that way until we kind of buck the trend.
I've actually got a question on that. You know how you were just mentioning there that all the Scottish players at the time were playing for Liverpool, Manchester United, probably Arsenal as well. Do you remember when England obviously had they say they kind of have a golden generation every year, but I'm talking about 2006 specifically.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard the Rio Ferdinand interviews where he kind of says it was down to all of us were playing for teams competing for the title at the time, so there would be a group of Man United players, there'd be a group of Chelsea players. Do you think that could have potentially happened with the Scotland side as well?
That's
it's a good point. Because I'm trying to think. Joe Jordan was Man United, and Arthur Albiston was Man United,
and then you had Archibald at Spurs. You had the Liverpool kind of guys.
Maybe even Andy Gray at Everton at the time.
Andy Gray,
it would have been either Wolves or Everton at the time.
There was a lot of boys playing in English football who were teams right up there. So now, I suppose with the way the modern games goes, a lot of the players in the Premier League in England certainly are overseas players, and a lot of Scottish boys are playing at Championship level in England and that, so it's maybe a wee bit more dispersed. But
I've never thought about that.
Well, it's just I suppose it's hard because obviously you spend more time with your club than you do your country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose when you're used to being rivals that much, that does feed into the national team, even though it should like bring people together, right? I mean, that totally happened in that England side in 2006.
I think 2006 there was like cliques. The Man United guys would stay together, and the Liverpool guys would stay together, and it kind of split up what should have been realistically a team that capable of winning the World Cup for England in 2006. But I've never thought about it. That's a great point. I might actually look more into that because there's a few. I listened to it's gone from me now. There's a podcast, Tifo football podcast, and they do a lot on World Cup series. They done one on Scotland 1978 and Scotland 1982. And they did say a few things about clubs, so maybe I'll have to go back to that and listen. Okay, let's get on. First memories of football as a kid.
Basically going to Palmerston Park, Queen of the South, as a wee boy. My dad used to work there as a turnstile operator. So the way it would happen, obviously, he'd
get him for free.
I did. I did it. And I later became a turnstile operator myself, which was a kind of poison chalice because you missed half the game before you really got in. But my mum would walk me and my brother. We left about 2 or 3 miles from the ground, but she would walk us to the ground, meet my dad at half time, and then he would take us in and watch the rest of the game with my papa.
Yeah.
And they both worked at Palmerston. So,
what kind of crowds were you getting back then?
Oh crikey, it would have been.
Is it better than now?
Aye. Aye. Yeah. I mean, I haven't got great, my memory's rubbish at the best of times, and with advancing years I forget a lot of things, but in those days when I was maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, Queens would have been, well, we've never been in the top flight in my lifetime, but certainly, playing a lot of bigger teams.
Yeah. And
there were good crowds at Palmerston then. We've still got a core support now, I would say around about 1,500, but that's wavered, and certainly this season we've struggled, but good crowds then, definitely.
And Dumfries is a decent sized place as well. It's not.
It is. I mean, population in excess of 30,000. So when you look at places like Inverness, Dingwall, even there's Hamilton, they were in the Premier League not that long ago, and some of the teams that have been in the top flight, Queens, I mean, we've been full time since 2007. And we've been in the Championship for a lot of that time since 2007.
Yeah.
But never quite made it to the top flight, and that's the one thing I hope to do before I shuffle off this mortal coil, shall we say?
So kind of we'll go back a little bit with Queen of South. 80s and 90s kind of started going regular. And what's life like? Because we've heard from previous fans what's life's like in the Highland League in the 80s and 90s. We've heard what life's like at Dundee United in the 80s and 90s. What's life like in the lower leagues of Scotland in the 80s and 90s?
I loved it. I mean, there was one season in particular, I think it was 85, 86, so what would have been then, 17, 18. Used to go to just about every away game on the bus, and that was in the era of football casuals and stuff like that. I wasn't a casual. I always wore a scarf and that, but I just loved going to my football in those days. The away days were special. I just enjoyed it. Bit of banter on the bus. I wasn't a big drinker, and obviously, but a lot of folk were. And I just away days here, there, and everywhere.
Any memorable away days? Any big away days like cup games or that?
Well, the biggest away day in my life would have came quite late on, 2008, when Queens got to the Scottish Cup semi-final.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just massive because, I mean, they'd never been in a semi-final of a national competition in my time up to that point.
I think we all remember that. Do you remember that game, Ryan?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Everyone remembers that game.
It was wild.
Just it was 4-3, wasn't it? Yeah.
4-3. Yeah. It was just like, wow. Just one hit after another. I mean, I've devoted a whole chapter to that in the book because I've got a lot of Aberdeen pals, and I had a lot of Aberdeen pals in the office at the time I worked for, so the banter was brilliant, and it was just such an amazing day. I describe each goal in the book as like having an orgasm. It was I mean, really, it was so intense. It was unbelievable, and it was just the best day of my life football wise.
Yeah. Brilliant.
No doubt about it. Nothing comes close.
So you just kind of got me thinking there. Like, if I was to write a football book about my team's Celtic, Ryan's team's Man United. Ryan, if you had to devote a chapter to one game in your lifetime, what would be your game? Because obviously I'm going to go for 2003 in Seville. Even though we got beat, like, I'd devote an entire chapter to that. Like, just because there's so much that I went through personally, emotionally. Every Celtic fan went through, and the build up to the game, the whole run and everything. What about yourself?
You're gonna laugh at me here, right? Because I'm going to approach this a different way, but it would actually be Sunderland away 2012. Now, do you know what I'm about to reference here?
No, I don't actually.
So that was the final day of the 2011-2012 season, where Manchester City scored the 2 goals in the last 60 seconds to win the league. Now, people will be like, why is that? Why would you write a chapter on that? Now, as much as I obviously was devastated at the time, I'll give you a quick story of this. I actually thought there was no chance that QPR were beating City, and it was my cousin's birthday that day, right? So I was round at his house. So I said to myself, I'm ignoring the result, so then I don't have to be unhappy about it, right? I can just pretend it didn't happen. So anyway, into this birthday, the news comes on, and it flashes up in the front of the screen that QPR have like leveled it at 1-1, right? So I'm like, right, I'm now watching, and then I had a look at. Do you remember Teletext? Remember you the red button and look up the scores? And I seen that was it Dribble C said that it put them 2-1 up or something. So on went Gillette Soccer Saturday. I commandeered the TV, and I got to see it happen live in front of me. Like, my whole kind of happiness was ruined, and I didn't speak to anyone for the rest of the day and ruined my cousin's birthday. But aside from that, what my point would be on that is I've never. It sounds bad, but there's very rarely I've felt that kind of intensity of disappointment and pain in my life. And I think, as well as the great nights of seeing your team win stuff or have a big game or whatever, there's another beautiful side to that of like the absolute heartbreak that comes with it as well. And even though I don't appreciate Sky playing that Aguero moment every chance that they get, still, but I just appreciated like seeing like what that meant to that football club for every 10 people that were in the stadium that day. But so yeah, that would be the game that I would.
It's mad because yours is something that happens against your team. Mine's something that happens against my team. Can I just ask just why yours isn't? Because the final's just as fascinating as the semi-final. Can I ask just why it isn't the final? We know obviously the drama and the madness of the semi-final, but they played out their skin in the final as well.
They did. But
did you go to the final?
Yeah, I was at the final. I mean, that season I think I only missed 2 games on the road to the final. Started off at Peterhead and a few other games, and I was at the quarter final against Dundee when Ryan McCann scored from 84 yards.
Yep.
And we won that game 2-0. But for me, getting to the semi-final, it was the first time, in 58 years we'd got to that stage and actually achieved a final. It was the first time I'd ever seen my team play in a competitive competition at Hampden, in a national cup competition.
Yeah.
It was against Aberdeen because I've bide up here for 30 years. I mean, the final was a great day, didn't get me wrong, and we were underdogs as well, but I felt getting to the final was the bigger achievement than actually to win the thing.
Yeah.
And, whatever happened in the final, that achievement of getting to the final was always going to be there, and we had that success. So for me, that game will always trump the final. And then I said, no, because we lost the final. We could have won the final. Okay, maybe that might have been bigger. I don't know, but just getting to the final was amazing. So to do it in such and the game itself was, I just can't describe how thrilling the game was. It was like back and forward. It was like a boxing match. We punched them, they punched us back.
Good goals and
there was some cracking goals. Absolutely belters of goals. But just getting to the final was bigger than being in the final.
Yep.
Once we got there.
Fantastic. Sorry, Scooty.
Is there a certain element of freedom kind of going in with that, Chris? Because I would imagine for like fans of teams like Aberdeen, Rangers, Celtic, you probably throw Dundee United and stuff like there in Hearts, they're expected to be in these positions every single year, right? Like just referencing recently Celtic and Aberdeen, that 3-3 and whatnot. I would imagine because Aberdeen has been successful as recent decades, that their fans could enjoy that more than the Celtic fans, where is like, if you lose, that's going to be devastating, right? Whereas like the other side, it's like, look where we've got to. Do you know what I mean? Do you kind of understand where I'm coming from?
Oh no,
there?
absolutely, 100%. Because I mean, what I say, I'm 55 years old, so I've been watching football my life, and that is the only time Queens have been in the Scottish Cup final, period, since we were formed in 1919, and I was there to see it, and I was there to see the semi-final, and likely it is we might never, certainly in my lifetime, might never be in that position again. So, I mean, just the emotion of it was unbelievable. I mean, we're a million miles away from doing anything remotely like that. That was just a special season, and it might be the only time I experience it. So, I'll go to my grave with that in my head,
Absolutely. That's absolutely. You take that. Somebody said to me, when I get to a quarter final Scottish Cup, I'll take it. I'll take a fifth round again.
Might be the case if Roger stays next season, to be fair.
Moving to Elgin and attending Elgin games. What year did you move to Elgin?
I moved north in 1994.
Yep.
So what about 30 years ago, passed in April.
Glory kind of period of the Highland League.
It was a good period. I mean, I joined the Scot as a news reporter, but also had a real passion for sport. I'd done sports reporting in my previous papers as well. I'd been programme editor for Queen of the South for the season and contributed to their programme. So I wanted to do sports. So when I come up here, Willie Grant was the kind of Highland League correspondent. Absolutely. Harry Bremner was the Elgin City correspondent. Both of them now sadly no longer with us. But I got more and more into the sport, and eventually I started covering Highland League. In those days, Elgin City was still Harry originally, and then Craig kind of took on that mantle.
Yeah.
So I for a good few years, I devoted myself to covering Highland League games. So it was great, and it's a great standard of football. Before I came up here, I had no concept of Highland League. When maybe you'd seen a few teams come up against Scottish league clubs in the Scottish Cup, and but I had no real notion of the Highland League. I thought it was a bit of a kind of
Diddy League.
To use the phrase Diddy League, you thought Highland League, but I mean, what a standard. And there's a lot of teams over the years that would have graced Scottish leagues easily.
I know we have the Lowland League system now, but was there anything but kind of that level down kind of Dumfries way before you moved up?
You would have had the Southern Counties League, which was in South West Scotland, but again, that would have been teams like Dalbeattie Star, Three Rovers, Newton Stewart, Wigtown, teams like that. And for a while, Queen of the South had the reserve team in that league. I'm not sure if, I think maybe the youth team or something still playing it, but so that's like a level below the Lowland League now as it is. And then you had the juniors and other leagues, but so there was nothing comparable to what the Lowland League is now, or on the same standards as Highland League. No, definitely no.
Okay, Chris, my first question that I didn't give you. In your time watching the Highland League, who's the best player you've seen?
Oh, crikey. Watching the Highland League, I would have to say Ian Stewart. And I'm biased now because I live in Lossy. And I like Lossy. I've got a soft spot for Lossy. And listening to Fraser Kellis on your podcast reminded me of just how good Ian Stewart was. So he was cracking.
Fantastic. Okay. First World Cup memories. He's given me 1978, Argentina. Fantastic Scotland team. We've kind of already spoken about it. Can you actually, when somebody asked me my first World Cup memory, it is literally Colin Hendry walking out beside, I think it was Cafu or Bebeto, as the Brazil captain. 98.
98 France, 98.
What's your first memory of 78?
78, we played Peru in the first game. So one of my abiding memories is that free kick that Cubias, is it Cubias? I think that's how you pronounce it, scored. That, I felt at the time I was screaming at Alan, oh come on, how did you save that? And then I watched it back.
People don't know about him. He's two-time South American Player of the Year.
I didn't realise that. But
fantastic player.
Yeah. And to be fair, they played a blinder, but that was first disappointment. And then Joe Jordan, I think, scored against Iran, but again, another huge disappointment. But then, the Archie Gemmill goal, 78. If nobody's watched it, you've got to Google that Archie Gemmill goal and just watch it. It was just amazing.
It's still, I don't know, I'm from a different generation. Ryan is he's 5 years younger than me, 6 years younger than me, so he'll have possibly a slightly different view. Best Scotland goal you've ever seen? Mine's James McFadden, personally, against France. No,
I would have to stick with Archie Gemmill.
Yeah,
just for pure individual brilliance. He kind of brought the ball down. I think he megged one of them, took it round another, and then just shifted his body and side footed it.
Don't get goals like that.
No, it was brilliant. No, that's. I mean, McFadden's goal was superb, and there's been even David Nary's goal in 1982.
Yep.
Jimmy Hill called it a toe poke. I disagree. I thought it was a right.
He smashed it.
He smashed it. So that was a good one as well. But I know Archie Gemmill, definitely.
Ryan, you got a favourite Scotland goal?
I would go with the McFadden one, but as an honourable mention, and it wasn't a defeat, so it doesn't get as much recognition. There was a Kenny Miller goal at Wembley where we're beating England 2-1 for ages, and I think they sent on Ricky Lambert and he scored 2, which was a bit it was like first time on the turn at Wembley. Lee Griffiths' free kicks.
I was just thinking that when you're the two free kicks. I mean, they were outstanding goals.
Really good goals. Yeah, not enough goals in Scotland my lifetime for Scotland anyway. Okay, so it's time to get your book. So can you just hold up your cover, Chris, to this one? This is Chris, and we can beep this in. What is the title of your book, Chris?
Right, it's quite a convoluted one, but it's called "You Think It's All Over?" ? Fuck that, stay in the game.
And do you want to give me the blurb from the back?
Oh, crikey on the back, right, go on, it's testing my side here. So it basically says, go on a journey through football and mental health, laugh at some of the hilarious shit that happens as described by a fan of the beautiful game, score some mental health goals to help kick anxiety and depression in the nuts, watch out for the red cards which make life a complete ball ache, never think it's all over, please stay in the game and on the ball.
Fantastic. So you were kind enough to give me your final draft a couple of days ago, and I've been going through it as much as I can. Fantastic. Brilliant work, by the way.
Cheers. You're the only third person to read it at this stage.
I feel honoured, I really do.
My daughter and my friend who's been advising me, and she writes books as well, so there's only 3 people. I think as much that's because I'm quite nervous about the whole process. Well,
you shouldn't be. There's a lot of entertainment value in there, and as I say, I think I'm about a third of the way through it. And I've also just kind of scanned for quotes and things. One of the things I absolutely love in it is you've got mental health goals, mental health red cards. Obviously, your book's about football. Your book's also about mental health. Can you explain to us, for example, give us an example of a mental health goal in your book and a mental health red card? I'll give you the red card. You give me a mental health goal. There's one of the red cards I like.
Right. Okay. And obviously, just to qualify that, there's more mental health goals than there is red cards. Because as I say in the book, football's an entertainment, so it's all about goals. Although I did say it was funny watching Graham Souness getting sent off when he was Rangers manager. But that was, I mean, basically the idea. I mean, I started writing basically just to help myself because, like, last year wasn't in a great place for a period with a lot of things going on in my life, stress and you name it. So I just started writing to help myself because writing, for anyone that hasn't written, just writing stuff helps so much. So then it just developed on, and I started writing. I thought, well, what do I write about? I thought, well, the 2 things I know. They always say write about what you know to start with, and I know about Fitba, and I know about mental health because of my own journey and other folks' journey. So I just started, writing about both of them, and I thought, and then it just snowballed from there. So then I decided, well, I've read loads of books where people are, telling you how to live a better life and how to be positive and how to do this and how to do that, and they can be quite serious and they're good. But I thought, well, life's a wee bit too serious at the best of times, and Fitba's quite funny. There's a lot of weird stuff goes on in Fitba. Yep. So there's humour. So humour is one of the best ways to actually cope with, excuse my French, shit that's going on in your life. So I thought, I'll write funny stuff because even although I've suffered from anxiety and depression, people always tell me I've got a good sense of humour, and I've used it a lot in the past for things I've done. So I just started writing, and then I thought, oh, well, maybe you're on something here. It's funny, and I showed it to a couple of folk, you know, because I didn't have the confidence to show it to a wider audience at that stage. So the mental health goals and red cards was just a kind of wee analogy to kind of get folk thinking, but give not even advice, because I didn't feel I'm that well placed to give advice, but just give examples that folk could follow, but in a quite simple way. So, you know, a goal is a good thing, a positive thing in football, red cards, not so good. So I thought I would just do the, you know, stuff that can make your life worse as a red card, and stuff, you know, as a goal. I mean, for one, I've put in there, one of the goals is to basically just play football or watch football any opportunity you get, you know, whatever age, you know.
You've got one of your red cards. Well, I'll go through a few of them, because it's just simple things. It's things people deal with every day in life that they maybe don't think. And I mean, I'm not saying I deal with all these things every day in life, but possibly one of the things I looked at was you've got a little bit about gambling in there. And like, I wouldn't say I'm a massive gambler. I like to play the bookies. I'll put a bet on the football now and again, and things like that, or play a coupon. And then I'm reading it, and it's like, you're on about your, I do enjoy it, your 20p accumulator.
I love doing my football bets.
You're
I mean,
trying to do about £3.5 million you're trying to make off this 20p accumulator. But you're saying, like, it's little bits, but you're saying it adds up, you know. And then you've got your red card at the end about gambling. You've got one about drinking, you know. And it should seem so simple to people, but when you actually have it in written form in front of you, you're like, that's actually, it's
I mean,
the point,
the gambling one,
know?
I mean, I've never been a big gambler, because I could never afford to lose lots of money, you know. But I used to enjoy a flutter on the horses. I don't bet on the horses anymore, because apart from the odd wee flutter, but I just didn't like the horses anymore. But I would only ever spend £2 or £3. But, you know, I did go through a period in my life where, you know, stressed at work and but hacked off of things, and I would buy lots of lottery tickets, scratch cards. I mean, even did online betting for a while, you know, which is really dangerous. That I didn't do the online stuff anymore, because before you knew it, you could have spent a £5 or £10, and you think, shit, where did that go? You know. So I'll never go into a bookies. And now I just stick to the fixed odds coupons, you know. And I know that's a big thing. There's loads of footballers now have got done for betting on football. But it would be very easy to let it run away with you, and especially if you're in a place where, you know, if you think the solution to all your problems is to win a fortune, you know, and before it, your mind takes over and you can be betting too much money. And I mean, the most I'll ever bet on something is maybe a tenner. You know, and to me, that brings me in a cold sweat, because I didn't. But, you know, I know people who bet lots of money, you know. Some of them, I suppose, nature of betting, you only hear when they win. You didn't hear about losses.
No, you don't.
So, I mean, I've been putting football coupons on for years, and I can only remember one ever seriously coming up, and that was on non-league English football, and I won £70. Can't remember how many games it was. And you mentioned there, and I talk about in the book, where I put on an accumulator with 20 plus results that had to come up, and I bet 20 pence, but it would have got me, I think it was about 350 grand, you know. You know, and it's never going to come up in a month of
Sundays. It's gone by the 12 kickoff.
You know. But it's good fun. I mean, I've had Saturday afternoons where I haven't been at a game, and I've sat there with my betting sheet, and it's like as long as your arm, and you're sitting checking the results as they go in, and then you get excited, and then you get deflated when you realise the results are not going your way, and then you think, well, I've got 3 different lines on. If I'd only picked that, and that together, I would have won, but you picked them in different lines. So, but the main message with betting is I mean, it sounds a bit patronising in the football betting company say, you know, once the fun stops, stop. It's easier said than done if you're a gambling addict. And I mean, I've watched Paul Merson's documentary, so I mean, it's scary stuff, but it can be fun as well going in. I just enjoy it. But for someone that perceives himself to know a lot about football, I'm not very good at predicting scores.
For somebody that's had time with the bookies, honestly, make bets with your mates. It's a lot more fun. See if you can bet. You say to your mate, right, it's a £20 bet this season that so and so is going to finish above so and so. That is 100 times more fun than playing against the bookies, because all season you get your banter going with your mate. Oh, I'm winning this week. Oh, you're winning next week. Like just something like that. If you're going to bet, there's better ways to do it than throwing your money at somebody who's going to give you odds that might seem good, but in reality it's working in their favour most times.
No, that's good advice. And I've always, anytime I put a football coat on, I've always enjoyed the results less than I would have done watching. I've watched Soccer Saturday. If I'm not actually at a game, you watch Soccer Saturday and all the results coming in. See, if you've got a coupon on it, you're more anxious about it, and more uptight about it.
Absolutely. I think the best way to enjoy football these days is if you've got fantasy football involved, and it's like, right, I don't really care about results. So-and-so needs a hat trick today.
It's not like, I think with what we're kind of talking about here, it's all very subtle how these things can escalate, right? Like no one becomes an alcoholic within a day. It's something that progresses over the time. Same with the addiction, with gambling and that. And I think one of the kind of, we're getting a bit not political here, but societal, I guess. But one of the things that kind of bugs me sometimes is like drinking and gambling. I suppose it can kind of be put alongside football, but my bigger point is it's always kind of celebrated in culture in like the UK, right? Like you always see posts of like people getting smashed. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying people can't go out and have a good time, but like these things must subliminally contribute through messaging and stuff like that.
I think the in-play betting that you can get now, I mean, I've never done it, but I see all the different permutations, how many goals someone's going to score, how, who's going to get booked, and, red cards and corner kicks and free kicks, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I mean, you can bet on absolutely every aspect of a football match now.
Like the cashing out element as well. Like, I remember actually having a conversation with a mate, and I was like, and it's one thing that you just brought up about like anxiety and stuff like that. You've got to think if someone is having like a problem with gambling and stuff like that, they're going to be in an anxious state, whether it's losing, and then that anxiety breeds, I've got to bet again because that'll sort it. And it's almost like the kind of cash out element where it kind of like dangles this carrot in front of you of like you can have this certain amount of money back. Is playing on people's anxiety in a way, as much as they do have the adverts.
There's bad ones as well where you can cash out a certain amount and still keep the bet on for the rest of the amount. I've seen ones like that, and it's like, they're giving people so many options. And like, I've joined gambling websites before, like Bet365 and things. I've put on bets. I don't think I've ever physically been ID'd for anything like this. I've just had to provide them an email address and that, so it's accessible to all sorts of ages, and it's not good for kids to be getting into things like gambling.
The thing is with football now, it's kind of endemic. Gambling isn't, because so many teams are sponsored by gambling companies, and there's gambling advertising. One of the things I talk about in there, again, it's just very light-hearted and a bit of a piss take, excuse the pun, but it's about advertising and football lavies, bogs, because you get advertising for loads of things. Some of it's quite good, and it's not like like erectile dysfunction and prostate cancer and all these kind of things, testicular cancer, that's another one. But I was at a game, it was just last year, and it was at Aberdeen. I'd never noticed this before. Most of all the advertising and your lavies is kind of above the urinal or at eye level, but there was actually a bet, an advertisement for a betting company actually inside the metal urinal, just staring you right in the kind of nether regions. A little football shirt saying "spend less pennies at," I won't say the name of the company, but I do mention it in the book. But and I thought that was weird. So you're literally pissing on a little advertisement for gambling.
That's not a sustainable business model. I'm sorry.
But these things are all.
I mean, it was funny in one sense because they're using the phrase, spend less pennies, and I get it. And ultimately, it's your choice whether you then go and bet on something.
Yeah,
but it's subliminal messaging, though, right?
Yeah,
like it's stuff that it's not obviously in your face. It's the thing that kind of triggers that automatic response to be like, oh, now it's on my mind. I'll put a $5 on or what. You know what I mean? It's
the thing that struck me was it wasn't even in my face. It was staring me in the dick.
Yeah.
It was where it was positioned. You were pissing on it.
I've been at some stadiums where that would be considered normal, and some stadiums where there's maybe like a junkie at the urinal, you know.
Stadiums, I've been to restaurants like that, mate.
Okay, right. Let's move. Well, actually, let's not move it on. I want to move it on with your book, Chris. We're going to publishing now. When can we expect to see your books kind of available and things like that?
I'm hoping physically getting them back in the next couple of weeks, because I'm doing a private launch on June the 1st. And then I'll be sort of selling them directly in at local bookshops and hopefully online.
Do you want to say where the money's going? Well, 25%,
I thought,
of the money.
I mean, yeah, it's something I would like to do as a kind of job, if you like, later in my career. But I also wanted to raise some money for charity, because I've done a lot of that over the years for various different charities and that. And because I'm a big part of Murray Mental Health Football Club now, and on a personal level, I've reached out to Mikey's Line for support on a couple of occasions. I thought both of them would be ideal, because they tie in with the mental health and football, mental health and football. Football fans talk about football, but they want to talk about how they're feeling or any other stuff. So I thought it just makes sense to try and raise some money for them. So any money I make, which, as I say in the book, it could be hee-haw or it could be £1 million. Hopefully it's the latter. I'm going to give 25% of the profits to share between those two charities.
Yeah.
So while I would like to, carve out a career as a writer later in life, but I still want to just help, a couple of really good causes. I don't know if the Mental Health Boys are an actual charity yet, but they're working that way, and Mikey's Line certainly is a charity. So
yep. So this podcast is going to be out at the end of May, Chris.
Okay.
By the time it's been out for a few weeks, hopefully your book's going to be launched and things. Where are we going to be able to find your book?
Well, hopefully, I haven't got any confirmed local bookshops yet, but I've certainly been speaking to a couple. I will be selling it direct. I say I hopefully maybe get to some special events, book fairs, or maybe even get a stall at football matches, once the season starts again. That'd be a good way to sell direct to folk. It's really, it's a step into the unknown for me, because I've never done this before, and I'm having to learn, how to create a product and then market your product and then sell your product, and so it's all a wee bit scary. And I say I'm not a businessman. I've never been in business in my life, but so I'm having to learn. But I'm taking advice from a couple of folk that I know run businesses, and I've written books and all that kind of jazz. So so I'll be selling it direct, and hopefully I'll have Instagram and Facebook pages set up by then. If I can get my daughters on the case, they're going to be my social media experts.
Fantastic, yeah. That's what you need. And I'm also going to be taking a couple of copies off Chris's book off him, and I'm going to be running my own giveaway once your book's launched.
Brilliant, magic.
Just to kind of get your name out there a little bit in that. Last giveaway was all in Maine, wasn't it? Done quite well.
Yeah, for Christmas. Yeah,
we done a signed pair of gloves and things like that from Ireland. So
we should get a copy up for the next Player versus the Producer. Get the stakes
well,
raised.
I actually had one for tonight, but I sat and thought about it, and I thought it's desperately unfair to you to give you a Player versus Producer, because, in fact, I could do it, but I could change the rules a little bit.
Do you know what, mate? Do you know what's the one thing that, because when I was editing that episode, right, I remember when I won the one that I won.
Yeah.
Who was it? Was it Devon? It was Devon, wasn't it? He got it wrong. The game didn't end. I had to then go answer another one.
Yeah.
But when I got my first one wrong the other week, you just ended the game, and I was like, "This is rigged, man. I'm going to refuse to take part in this."
Right, that's fine. But yeah, I'll be doing a giveaway. A like and share giveaway for Chris's boot to give you a wee bit of promotion and things like that, Chris, because I'm all for...
Well, I'll maybe get you a t-shirt as well, because I've got a couple of
special
that, t-shirts done to promote the book.
Yep.
Again, using a local charity, Murray Reach Out. So
if you do a launch or anything like that, let me know, because we can advertise it through the page on Facebook and get people along.
Excellent. Yeah, just spreading the word, just try to help myself, trying to help others who might be in a difficult position, and just help a couple of charities as well at the same time. So hopefully it's a win-win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. And you never know, you might hear an audiobook coming from the studio someday soon.
Well, that's a good contact, and I'm definitely going to explore that further, definitely.
Okay, Chris. Murray Mental Health FC. I've got Matty, Phil, and Stephen, the 3 guys that run it. Do you want to talk a little bit? I'm going to get the guys on next episode, so I'm going to get them to explain their story and things.
Yeah.
Can I get your initial involvement with the guys and then starting playing games and where you're at now?
I mean, first of all, I just use one word to describe them: legends.
Yep.
They're absolutely, fantastic individuals. But what they've done is superb. I mean, I got involved simply through my work as I'm an editor, but as I still class myself as a reporter. I like to write whenever I can. Going along to interview them, do a wee story about why they set up the club. Obviously, they had a close friend who took his own life, and it came as a huge shock to them. And then once they'd come to terms with that, rather than just moving on with their life and remembering their friend as people will do, they wanted to do something a bit more proactive. So they set up the football club or the family or whatever you want to call it, and it's really just growing arms and legs. And they have regular kickabouts at various different places: Forest, Lossy, Elgin, you name it. And they do regular charity matches for Mikey's Line, raised a lot of money. And they're just, I think now there must be upwards of 50, 60 people who are regularly partaking in the kickabouts, not all at the same time. They're averaging about maybe 30 to 36 people every session now.
Yeah.
And people can dip in, dip out. You don't have to take part in games if you didn't want. You can sit and watch. You can take time out. But the beauty of it is, people are there just to have fun, encourage each other, enjoy the game. But if they are struggling, you can have a quiet chat with someone, or even just talking to someone. I've had conversations with folk going to games now where you start talking about life and stuff. Initially it's football, but once you get to know people, you know a bit about their backstory, and you can talk to them. And everybody's kind of in the same boat. And it's a kind of misnomer. I mean, everybody in the world has mental health of some kind, whether it's good on one day or bad on another day, or indifferent, or whatever you suffer from or you challenge with. But just having that group there, that football. I mean, there's women go along as well. It's just a great way to express yourself. And if you're having a bad day, you can let off some steam, go and kick a football about, have a bit of fun. But you can also talk as well. And with social media, there's a great WhatsApp group, which the banter flies back and forward. But boys also know if they're having a bad day, they can message folk and that. So it's unbelievable what they've done, and what in such a short space of time. It's only been going on 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And they've got a really good community going. Yeah, it's really excellent.
No, it's fantastic. And as I say, more to come with these guys in the next episode. We've got them in, and this will be going out on the 29th of May. I've got the guys in June the 8th, so it'll be around about June time. Looking forward to it. I've got a few of the guys that come to the Sports Community Trust, play down with them. I know I'm a big watcher of welfare and junior football anyway, so a few of the guys are ex-welfare and junior players themselves, and that. Some fantastic players in there as well. How do you fit in, Chris? Because it's a high quality squad. It's
a decent standard of football. There's a lot of young boys. I mean, I'll probably be one of, if not the oldest. I'm 55, coming 56, and we've got a lot of young boys. But I just at my age, you get a lot of experience. You can read the game, and but it's great fun playing with them, and playing against other teams. We had a game through in Aberdeen against TKA, which stands for the Kickabout Aberdeen. Again, same principle,
mental health.
Just supporting each other. So, and I'm loving it. I've got like a second lease of life in the football sense, because I thought my football career was long behind me, but I'm really enjoying it, and no plans to stop playing football.
Stay in the game, as we say, Chris. Stay in the game, mate. Okay, I like the next question. I like the answer to the next question. Favourite football player of all time?
Stephen Dobby.
Right, I didn't need to Google him because I know who he is, and I knew all about him before he went to Swansea with obviously the Queen of the South stuff and that. He's like your Queen of the South Henrik Larsson.
Henrik Larsson and Paul Gascoigne and Jeff Hurst, and everybody rolled into one.
Is he considered the greatest Queen of South player of all time?
I don't know if football fans even older than me, because we have had a player, Billy Holston, who played for Scotland, so that was even before my time. So maybe people of a different era or generation might think otherwise, but to my mind, greatest player ever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have much memories of this guy playing for Swansea in that round?
I do, yeah. Was it the Rogers side that he was part of? It was Roberto Martinez. It was Rogers, yeah.
Really good player, and I remember being shocked that he wasn't playing at a bigger team in Scotland. No offence to Queens or anything like that, but I felt he should have been a Premiership standard player in Scotland.
He started at Rangers. That was his boyhood team, and then he was at Hibs and St Johnstone. But he kind of admitted, and I was at his testimonial game earlier this year, and he admitted in the match programme for that in those days he was probably living it up, the fact he was a footballer, but he wasn't really dedicating himself to the football.
Yeah.
So consequently, he ended up on loan at Dumbarton, and they disrespected Dumbarton because they've just got promoted the other day, so they're back up a league. But he was grubbing about in the lower level, and I remember seeing him for the first time at Elgin City, ironically, when he was on loan, and I couldn't believe. I mean, I didn't know of Stephen Dobbie before that, and I say it in the book, and they disrespect him, and I wasn't a lightweight myself, but I remember thinking, watching him when he was warming up and then playing, I thought, who's that fat bastard? Because he really was chunky. He was chunky, but boy, was he a good player, and he scored that day, and then Queen's signed him, and I thought, brilliant. And he was still quite chunky, because one of the images in the book is of a mural of Dobbie in 2008 when he was at Palmerston, and he's still a bit chunky.
Yeah.
But he very quickly got serious. The Queen scored tons of goals, kept us in the Championship 2 seasons running, and then got his big move to Swansea.
I was scoring 35-40 a season.
Aye.
Yeah.
I mean, for Queens, he's been a prolific scorer. He's never been a prolific scorer, in terms of 20-30 at the English Championship level, but he's scored something. I mean, he scored in the playoff final against Reading in front of 90,000 fans at Wembley to get Swansea up. He was in that Blackpool team that kind of, perversely got to the Premier League. I mean, that was just bonkers, Blackpool getting up to the Premier League. But he played in that team, scored some great goals, and then he got promoted a third time with Crystal Palace when he was on loan at Crystal Palace.
Yeah,
scored some bangers. So, and I say, I mean, just for me, he's just, I don't know, I just love him to
one
bits.
of a kind.
Always will. And there's so many Queens fans just love him to bits.
Yep. So from your favourite player to your greatest player of all time, you give me a defender, which I quite like.
I remember that now. Yeah. I mean, I'm tempted to say Stephen Dobbie again, but I can't. I'm going to dip into the realms of stalking if I keep saying Stephen Dobbie. But I was a defender at school, and I loved defending, and I think there's a great art to defending, almost as great as scoring goals. So I did like the Italian boy Franco Baresi. He was just like just cool, and he never got flustered, and that was in the era when I haven't watched so much Italian football recently, but Italian football used to be on a Sunday. I think it was Channel 4.
Channel 4.
Aye.
Galazio.
So for an Italian team, if you won 1-0, that was brilliant. It's the old days of 1-0 to Arsenal, 1-0 to Milan or whatever, and Franco Baresi was a centre half who just was, again, probably ahead of his time. He was so comfortable in the ball.
Yeah,
he could play it out from the back, long before playing it out from the back was fashionable, and was just
it was Costa Carter, Maldini, Baresi, and who's the right back? Is it Tassotto?
Maybe not
Tassotto. The back four they were known as, or the defence. They were just, I think Ryan gave me a stat a couple of podcasts ago that they won the entire league title, 38 games, only scored 34 goals, but they only conceded something like 15.
Yeah, that's wild,
It's a lot of 1-0s that, it's...
and don't get me wrong, a 5-4 or a 4-3 game is thrilling and exciting, but there's something just as satisfying in a nice solid 1-0 where you just shut the other team out, you know what I mean?
Yep. As somebody that coaches and manages football, I'll take a 1-0. I don't want a 5-4. It's not good for you. It's not good for your
Definitely
heart.
not.
It's really not. It's like I'm actually considering stopping watching Celtic Rangers games because it's just not good for me. Like, I swear I'm going to die of a heart attack watching one of these one day, and my blood pressure's up here, and then the next minute it's down, and I'm just like, okay, this is fine. And then something happens, and I'm back up again, and I just can't stop myself. And I'm like, right, I need to stop these. But
Has it got worse now that Celtic have kind of dominated that fixture for so long?
I think it's got worse
Because you're not as used to like disappointment.
For the last 10 years, it's been so one-sided that like I don't think I can take Rangers overtaking and coming back now. Like, and
They've still got a bit to go though before that. I mean,
I think
Clement's done a good job, and they won the League Cup. I mean, I suppose they could win the Scottish Cup because any team can win in a one-off game, but they've still got a wee bit to go. I mean, what was it saying that I was watching the Celtic, title, getting the league the day against St Mirren, and is it 12 of the last 13 they've won?
Yep.
And so I mean that's still pretty dominant. And
I think it's 18 out of the last 24.
18 out of 24, and in the last 24 years they've won 39 trophies. So it's complete dominance of Scottish football.
I know you'll argue this, but they're one behind on the total of league
no, I
titles
don't
now
argue
as well.
that. I'm not that petty. I'll be petty if there was a Rangers fan in, but
Well, there's plenty of them as well, to be fair. So.
I'm neither Rangers or Celtic. And from a personal point of view, I mean, I grew up watching football in an era where Dundee United and Aberdeen were competing, against Old Firm. Competing well. Hearts should have won a league championship one season and threw it away in the last day of the season. But I would just love to see your Aberdeens, your Hearts competing again and getting in between them and even challenging. Because it's 1984-85 is the last time anyone out with Rangers and Celtic won the top flight of Scottish football, so that's nearly 40 years.
And it's 2006 and somebody's finished, apart from when Rangers were out with the top two. So, it was at Hearts. We always going to be that Hearts season.
It was the Presley-Hartley team, wasn't it? And then went and sold Hartley and Presley to Celtic
I don't count
mid-season.
the seasons when Rangers were out or the first one back because it wasn't the Rangers team. I wasn't a competitive Rangers team. But it's been total dominance by the Glasgow teams.
I do remember one season, I can't remember which it was, when George Burley was Hearts manager and they won the first 10 games of the season. And then he got, and that was in the era when it had that dude, what was his name? Romanoff.
Oh yeah,
he was in charge. The slightly dodgy
or what is
guy.
I listened to a podcast and I think it's Presley is saying that they turned up 3 seasons and there were 70 foreigners, like 70, and he says there was 40 Lithuanians, there was a couple of guys from Czech Republic and that, and he says there was about 3 Scottish guys, and he says we didn't know what to do, but it was just Romanov bringing in his own guys through all these agents that he knew.
The thing is, I think if that ever happens, and like it does seem like the disparity is just too big for it to ever be possible, but if someone was to win the SPL outside the Old Firm, I genuinely think that would be a bigger achievement than Leicester winning the Premier League.
I think so.
Absolutely.
I think so, yeah.
Absolutely. Because I think the English Premiership, Man City and Liverpool's, they've got the pedigree and more money, but the other teams have got enough money that, obviously Leicester were able to do that. Other teams have got close, although Man City are kind of very dominant.
A very quick question to you both. Is Bayer Leverkusen's achievement this season the biggest achievement in the history of club football?
I would say so.
If they go undefeated,
because they've never won a league title before, and I just realised that this week they've never won the league title before.
Well, they were in the Champions League final one year against Real Madrid. Obviously, there's Zidane, Glasgow. So I mean, if they go unbeaten and they win the Europa League and everything, it's pretty. Because the way the thing that's most impressive about that side is it almost seems like it's fixed, but they scored in like the last minute of the game every single game.
Aye.
There were 2,
and even in the recent European game, they were losing 2-1, but they were still going through on aggregate.
Yes,
but they were still gunning for an equaliser, so to keep their unbeaten record going. And I just thought that mentality is, sensational.
Well, there was one of the games they were 2-0 down, and I got a ping on my phone, and it was like, I think Leverkusen are away to lose their unbeaten record. I checked the goal and I'm like, it's 2-2. What are you on about?
It's like in the 98th minute all the time as well. It's ridiculous.
Okay, right, I'll move on because I could speak about that team all day. It's fantastic. Most famous person you met? You said to me Colin Hendry. Was that through the paper?
I've met Colin a couple of times. I covered a sportsman's dinner at Forest Mechanics where he was the main speaker. And I've met him a couple of times at charity games and that. So, probably the most famous footballer, I suppose. But I mean, you actually got to stop and think just how famous he is. Really, I mean, he's from Keith and started Highland League and then Dundee. But I mean, he was captain of Scotland at a World Cup, so I mean, pretty big deal. And obviously, he's had a lot of heartache in his life as well, and he's recovered from all that, and he does a lot of good. So I probably Colin, most famous footballer I've met. Yeah, most famous non-footballer would be Ewan McGregor, film star, but I don't know how good he is otherwise at football. I've no idea.
Get him in. Next Football Journal's episode coming.
That's us just hit the hour, by the way, mate.
Okay, fantastic. Right. Okay, so I'm trying to keep these to under an hour 15 these days, Chris, because I think Blackie broke the record at an hour and 48 minutes or something like that. But I won't complain.
Happy birthday, Stu, by the way, if you're listening.
Yeah, happy birthday, Stuart.
I know it's 3 weeks past your birthday, but...
Okay, so out of these ones, there's two I want to ask you more than... so we're going to go back to this famous game, the 4-3 game. Talk us through your emotions in that 90 minutes, because that game had everything. It wasn't just a case of a team went 3-0 up and then a team made a comeback.
1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, 3-3, 4-3. It was just like, wow. And there was still half an hour to go when it was 4-3.
Yep.
And Aberdeen were knocking on the door, you know. I mean, Aberdeen played well. We just played better, you know. But it was an amazing game to watch. It really was. It was fantastic. I went through every emotion. Actually, I mean, I'm not hyping this up. I actually nearly fainted at one point when Queens scored their fourth goal. I stood up and I was cheering, and I was sitting next to one of my friends, and I felt my knees go. I almost keeled over because I was so delighted. You know, whatever the chemical is that's released in your brain when you're at that moment. Serotonin or dopamine or whatever the hell it was, but I nearly keeled over because I was so excited, you know. It was just and that last half hour was the most nervous, anxious of my life in a footballing sense, you know. It was just it was an unbelievable game.
I was going to do a 1-11 with you as a producer versus player, but I do really think it's unfair on Ryan after the last couple I've given. So I'm just going to ask you, Chris, can you give me the lineups from Rangers versus Queen of the South? Not the Aberdeen, Rangers versus Queen of the South from the final. Can you give me either the Queen of the South or the Rangers lineup from that day?
Well, Queen of the South would have started exactly as it was in the semi-final, so that should... Oh, see, I should have written this down and brought it with me, because now you're testing me. Jamie McDonald, Ryan McCann, Jim Thompson, Andy Aitken, Bob Harris, Stevie Tosh, Neil McFarlane. I might get them slightly out of sync. Stephen Dobby, obviously. Well, he went off injured in final early doors. It was disappointing.
3 to go.
Sean O'Connor. Paul Burns. Shit, am I missing one? Oh, no, I've done it out of sync. Oh, crikey. Apologies to this one person. Oh, my God. Right, I've got other defenders, midfielders, Sean O'Connor, Dobby. Oh, this is dreadful. Tosh, McFarlane, Paul Burns. Oh, Stevie Tosh. No, I said Stevie Tosh, didn't I?
Stevie Tosh, yeah. You said O'Connor. McCulkin.
Oh, guy, Jamie McCulkin. So apologies, Jamie.
And then off the bench, you had O'Neill, Robertson, and John Stewart. I always remember John Stewart.
John Stewart, well, he scored the winner against Aberdeen in the semis, obviously, ex-Aberdeen boy. It was just like written in the stars. He was going to score.
He's from Peterhead as well, isn't he? Yeah. Can you name the Rangers team? That's what I was going to ask you. So
Yeah,
when
well-
I done it, I was going to say Chris could only name Rangers players.
Right, okay. But I would have had, yeah.
McGregor.
It's the same, roughly the same 2008.
Yeah, it'd be like the one that got to the UEFA Cup. So
Exact
like
same
Steve
team.
Davis.
Yep.
Well, maybe go back to
Broadfoot?
front. Chrissy Boyd was up
No.
top.
No.
DeMarcus Beasley.
Yep.
Carlos something or other.
Quayler.
That's it, Quella. Ferguson. No, was he?
Yeah, Ferguson's there.
Ferguson. Struggling now with the Rangers
Big
team.
Davy Weir.
Davy Weir,
Sasa Papac. Kevin Thompson. Lee McCulloch.
Right.
John-
I was at a whiskey dinner with him recently, just as a
Aye.
wee side note. Aye.
John-Claude Darcheville.
Oh, okay. Aye.
Steve Davis and John Fleck.
Right.
So fair to say I would have been 4-1 down if I was allowed to
Yeah,
play. But
I'm not doing that to you. I'm not doing that to you. Okay, and then so just to kind of get us through your questions a bit, Chris, because I went 15 questions and I normally do about 12, but I was
Right.
just plus there's too much to speak about with that not to get into it. Falkbers FC Association Bagman.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been watching him the last few seasons because I call him my son-in-law, but they're not married. But him and my daughter, he plays from Ben Stewart. He plays with Falkbers. Used to play Highland League. He was with Bucky Thistle and then Rothus, and then stepped into juniors, and then he's from Falkbers originally, and he just loves playing his welfare. And he went to welfare a long time ago, and he just loves playing his football with Falkbers. He's the team captain now.
Yeah.
And just so passionate and so competitive. My son's part of the squad as well. He's a goalkeeper, but he's kind of in the fringes at the moment, but he enjoys being part of it. So that's the reason I've watched them the last few seasons. And then, to be honest, this season I said to the manager, Toast, Gary Birchall, could I get involved, because I missed that part of it, being involved in a team, because I used to coach at school and Bucky Thistle youths and such like. So this season, I mean, they've named in the sidelines because Toast is player manager, and so they've just got the subs. So I says, right, I'll go bagman, physio. I mean, I've got first aid, but I'm not a physio. But and I got to make my debut the other night against Ari Flossenmouth, and boy went down, hurt his shoulder. So I was right on there and tending to him. So I'm enjoying that. It's good. It's good crack. They're a good bunch of lads. They really are. They're blinding, and I say they won the league and 2 cups last year. So they're like, I think they've won back-to-back leagues. So they're a pretty good team.
Yeah.
They like to play football. They like to get it done. They do moan like Billy-O at times. Even when they're winning, they can still have a go at each other. But they're a good bunch of lads, and I'm really enjoying it, and it's good fun. It's good fun.
Okay. You won 11. It's very interesting. We've got a mix of Queen of the South, Scotland legends, a wee bit of Brazilian flair in there, and then some absolute smashing machines. So Alan Davidson goals.
Yeah, he was a great keeper. Called Barney. He was just
Was he the manager as well at some point?
no. I don't
think
know where Alan moved to, but he was just a outstanding shot stopper.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just would fly across his goals, tipping balls left, right, centre. He was just outstanding goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And pretty good looking bloke as well.
Albiston,
After Albiston, Man United fullback. I mean, I kind of put him in. I think he was more a left back, but I've put him in because I think I've actually put 2 left backs in there.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't think of a better right back than the 2 left backs, which sounds a bit weird. But Arthur Albiston, he was a Scottish player and played for Man United, and you know, 80s, late 70s, 80s, you know, quality teams in Man United before they went into a doldrum, before Ferguson came and revolutionised, before they then went into a doldrum again.
Back when they had players like I think Frank Stapleton and
Norman
Whiteside and that.
Yeah,
Would that I suppose that would even been before the days of Gordon Strachan, was it?
That probably just preceded Gordon Strachan's arrival.
Always had good players, Man United, but never really done anything with them, because I think you'll be able to know better than me. I think that they were very successful in the late 60s, and then from the late 60s right the way through until about the early 90s, they didn't really do much. They
had some good teams, and I think they won the FA Cup a couple of times, but never really challenged in the league of that, But they had Brian Robson and boys like that, Lou McCarry.
There was another Scottish player, Gordon. His daughter
Gordon
worked
McQueen.
for Gordon McQueen.
Gordon McQueen,
Gordon
Martin
McQueen.
Buchan. They've always had some good Scottish players down the years.
Yeah.
Mind it.
It was Tommy Docherty was in charge there, wasn't it? Yeah, of course. So we spoke about Hansen and Baresi, but your left back, Roberto Carlos.
It just seems fantastic.
I think we're on about a 50% ratio for people coming into the studio.
Just kind of. I mean, he was a decent enough defender, but I mean, his free kicks were amazing. That free kick where he bent it from about 50 yards and the bend on it was just.
The thing is, the mad thing is, right? For every one he put in, he smashed 10 wide.
Oh, aye, but you're only ever going to remember the ones he smashed in.
But the ones he put in, they just had something about them. I think the only other free kick taker I've seen better at long range free kicks in was Juninho that used to play for Lyon. Best free kick. He used to take them from the halfway line and stuff like that and just have no issue with it.
I just remember the Champions League red button thing, and it would always show you the Lyon games, and it was like every week.
Yeah, it's just something done by him. George Cloy, I think when I was reading because I had to go into forums and things like that to get, I think they reckoned he played 10 different positions for
George. I mean, I think he probably even had maybe went in as an emergency keeper if somebody got sent off. But George, you could ask him to play anywhere and he would just do it, and he was solid. I mean, he was essentially a kind of central midfielder, and maybe not the greatest technically, but boy, he put in a shift and he would just run all day, and just he just lived and breathed Queen of the South, just loved the club.
Right, little side note question here. Who I was going to ask it earlier on, I didn't get to ask it. I really want to. Who's the best football player you've seen at Elgin City?
At Elgin City,
yeah.
Oh, crikey. In more recent times, I thought Dylan Easton was a cracking player.
Fantastic.
Now at Wraith Rovers, and they've got a chance of going up to Premiership. Crikey, who else? Oh, crikey, you've put me right in the spot there. I'm trying to think who.
Well,
obviously, Craig Gunn. He was a fantastic finisher.
How did Shane Sutherland get on down at Queen of the South?
Shane did all right. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't too bad. He's obviously had his problems with injuries. I mean, he was a kind of Marmite figure at Elgin, Shane, because I mean, he was a good striker and he scored a lot of goals, but never felt he always quite hit it off with all the fans. It was a kind of, because Shane, if you didn't know him, he could come across as on the outside quite a lazy looking player.
Yep.
Not always involved in the games or even interested, but he could finish and he was a goal scorer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Zico.
Well, that's when I loved watching him in the 1982 World Cup. Unfortunately, one of those games was against Scotland where they kind of destroyed us. But he was just, I mean, he was like, it wasn't quite the same as your Messi's or that, but he was of that ilk from a generation before them, and kind of just a few years ahead of Maradona, but obviously kind of latterly overlapped with Maradona of Argentina. But I like Zico of Brazil. He was just,
I think my dad's better with like 70s, 80s, 60s football, things like that. And I think he possibly said to me previously, between Pele and R9, that's your best Brazilian. And there's not even, doesn't even come close.
That Brazil team of 1982 should have won the World Cup. Yeah. They were by far and away the best team, but they just bottled it. But no, they were outstanding players, that Brazil team.
And to compliment him nicely, you've got Mr. Paul Gascoigne.
I put Gaza in there. I mean, I remember being on holiday many years ago in Blackpool with a mate when I was a teenager, and we were downstairs in this hotel playing pool, and we got in tow with a Geordie boy, and he says, tell you who you should watch out for, boys. There's this young lad, he's coming up the ranks at Newcastle, Paul Gascoigne, and he hadn't even been in the first team at that stage. He says he's going to be outstanding. And I always remember that conversation. I thought, who is this Gaza? Well, soon discovered who he was, and
Yeah.
he was a unbelievable
A little bit
talent.
of flawed genius.
Yeah, but I mean, they're always going to, some of your better players are always going to be like that, That was the kind of the yin to his yang. I mean, he was such an amazing footballer, but obviously had his demons off the pitch and issues, but he was just unbelievable talent. So I'd always stick him in there,
Brilliant. So you've got up front, you've got a front three. You'll never see this front three ever again. Alan Shearer, Stephen Dobbie, and Lionel Messi.
Aye.
So
That would be my dream if I could have seen all three of them playing the same team. But
I actually brought up Shearer in my last podcast. I don't know if you've listened to Martin's episode. Do you know Alan Shearer's technique for finishing?
no,
And it's aim for the goalkeeper and hit the ball as hard as you can.
okay.
And as somebody who coaches football, I would never teach my kids. You always teach them aim for the corners, aim for the posts and things like that. And
Aye.
yeah, I now teach my kids to aim for the goalkeeper and hit the ball as hard as they
it's
can, because if it's good enough for Alan Shearer, it's good enough for
keep it
anyone
simple.
else.
I mean, he'd scored some bangers in his time. I've never seen a boy hit a ball as hard. And
Yeah, 260 goals Premier
I
League.
know.
I think, I don't know about you, but I don't think that record's getting beaten for that.
I don't think so. If Harry Kane had stayed in the Premiership,
it would have been gone. Yeah,
it would have. I mean, and given the season he had at Bayern Munich, he maybe want to come back to the Premiership sooner rather than later. But no, it's amazing.
you just don't get at 18, 19 these days a 30 goal a season striker in England.
No.
Michael Owen or Wayne, I don't think Rooney done 30 by 18, 19. I think Owen was the last person to do it.
Yeah.
And they don't make strikers like that anymore.
No. And what I loved about Shearer, and apologies to Ryan here because he's a Man United fan, but Shearer put his love of Newcastle before,
Titles.
because if he'd gone to Man United, wow, what a team, that was Fergie's, just the start of it. He could have gone there and won umpteen titles and cups and that. He went to Newcastle, won sweet FA, but he became a legend at the club of his boyhood, and
Yeah. I don't think he just got as many goals at Man United either.
Would have
No.
been interesting to see him and Roy Keane's dynamic given their relationship in later years.
Yeah. But mind you also got the flip side. What's his goal return going to be with Beckham one side of him and Giggs the other side of him? It's
That,
potentially going to be
that
better.
United side was always being rotated as well, wasn't it? Where Shearer was the first name on the team sheet every week for that side for
4
10
strikers
years.
in that United team for a
Yeah.
long time. Like, it was madness. We spoke about Stephen Dobbie. Messi, we'll kind of round up your 11 with
just
him.
a joy to watch, and he just could dribble past people. We dropped with the shoulder and he was away, and
Yep.
but half the time you would never know he was in the game, and he's such a lazy player off the ball. I've watched him off the ball at times, and he doesn't take a blind bit of interest, but the minute the ball comes near him and it's at his feet,
Yep.
wow.
Yep,
And just the
lights up.
finish, just a genius.
Yeah, unbelievable. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, it is.
I've really enjoyed that. Chris's book's going to be out in the next couple of weeks. You think it's all over? Fuck that. Stay in the game. One of the things I'm going to round off by your book is, I'm just going to get quickly touch on this because I think it's massive. I'm big for it. I've started to experience it now, getting older, knowing people and things affect differently. Check your balls. One of the things that's in your book.
Yeah, well, that came from, and I mean that's not the main theme of the book, but it was one of, I was just trying to search for funny things, but actually at the same time get a message over.
Yeah.
And I was at a quiz in Inverness last year, and again I was having a slash, and we talked about earlier on urinal advertising. This was a sign above, head height, and it was talking about the Odd Balls Foundation, and it telling you good advice, how to check your balls for testicular cancer and all that kind of stuff. And afterwards I went on their website and I thought, I can something, there's a chance here to have a bit of fun but also get a message across. So I talk about the, how they tell you the best method to use and all this kind of pattern, and then they say, check your balls on a monthly basis. And excuse my French, and I thought, fuck's sake, nobody's got to check their balls on a monthly basis. Blokes are checking their balls daily multiple times. So I've kind of drawn on that to have a bit of a laugh, but also get the message across that it's one way you could save your life as well. You know, I mean, if you check and you get a wee lump of that, get it checked out. You know, so
Absolutely.
it's the same way. You know, same with mental health. If you know, didn't sit on things, didn't stew on things. So whether it's a physical condition or a mental condition, didn't sit and keep it to yourself.
Yeah,
because it's better out there. Well, near your balls, keep them undercover. But you know what I mean? Metaphorically speaking, with your balls, get it out there. And
as well as I think, especially that particular topic, is I don't think a lot of people realise how common it is in the younger population as well. It isn't just something that occurs after 40 with some other kind of cancers. Like, it is very common in the young male generations as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
The reason I'm so big about wanting to end on that is our demographics about 95% male, and I can guarantee you 75% of them don't check their balls. They maybe check them because they're sitting playing with them all day, but they're not actually checking them. No. Guys, it takes 2 minutes. Just give it a wee check. You'd rather keep yourself safe by giving it a wee check than the potential other way that it could go. Anyone struggling with their mental health, I've actually said this before in the podcast. We've said this before on the Northeast Corner. Reach out, reach out to us. I've got a little message button on Facebook. You can get in touch with us. Murray Mental Health FC. Check them out on Facebook. They're advertising their kickabouts all the time. Chris, through his book, I'm sure Chris wouldn't mind saying if anyone's struggling and wanted to get in touch with you yourself.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the biggest and best thing you do is talk to folk.
Yep.
And I've never always been the best at doing that, I will admit. And folk read the book. Some folk that think they know me might be shocked at some of the stuff, because I've been suicidal in the past, and I've reached out for help. And at the moment, I go to the changing room, which is a Sam H thing at Elgin City, and there's the Murray Men Talk. That's a Facebook group with loads of members. So the worst thing you can do is bottle anything up,
Absolutely.
And it's easier said than done. I get that, but if you didn't talk and you didn't talk about stuff, it's just going to lead things to unravel, and then it's harder to come back from. So
it's a way of isolation, really, keeping it all in, right? Whereas
Absolutely.
things like, like you were mentioning, Murray, Mental Health FC, it's taking the football and all that out of it. It's a community, isn't it? And that's the thing that's most important to humans. We're not creatures of isolation. We're creatures of socialising, aren't we? So
being human is all about connecting, whether it's in a football stadium with your mates watching a game, actually playing a game, or through music or whatever podcast. It's about connecting.
Yeah.
So that's if you're living on your own, which I do, it's important to connect. You can't always be surrounded by people 24/7, but it's connect whenever you can. In any way you can.
Football's a perfect way. You need more than one person to play football. At the end of the day, you need two people to play football.
It's a perfect sport. Yeah. It's a perfect sport.
Okay, right. I want to actually read this out because I'm looking for a sponsorship for my podcast. So I've been tracking my numbers over the last couple of weeks. So anyone that would like to sponsor my podcast, please get in touch. It's not going to cost you much money. I just want to start making this sustainable, because not a lot of people realise that it does actually cost money to produce podcasts. They're not free. So,
as much as people wish they are, though. You should see my business message inbox.
But what I would like to do is, if I could start getting sponsorship, the more money I could make, the more podcasts I can produce. It's simple.
Help keep the lights on.
Help keep the lights on here for Ryan. So in TikTok, we're up to almost 1,200 followers, which is quite mad. Our videos have been viewed 185,000 times.
Brilliant.
Which is, it's actually blown me away. As of this morning, we're 103 followers on Spotify. We've been played over 4,000 times. YouTube, we're up to 43, over 4,000 plays on YouTube as well. Facebook, we hit 500 this morning.
Excellent.
So
that's good numbers. That's brilliant numbers, because I've also worked in the local newspaper industry, and now we're going more digital.
Yeah.
So a number of eyeballs and not earballs, what do you call it? Yeah, ears, listening ears.
Yeah.
You know, with a podcast as well. That's good figures. So I would wholeheartedly say to anyone it'd be good for your business to be associated with this. And
absolutely,
definitely,
I'll get your name out there. My TikToks are averaging 10,000 views a video, and we're out every 2 weeks. We're going for the whole year. If Ryan's planning to keep this going, I'll be going as long as he's going. So,
well, that's another thing that I think people sometimes, because I usually put up the posts of when you're in.
Yep.
I think sometimes people think this is connected to the football journals, which it is. But if anyone else would like to start something like this,
absolutely,
this is space is available to rent to anyone who may want to use it. So,
right.
Give us a quick 30 seconds on everything you can do in here, Ryan.
Oh, right. God, you put me on the spot. Well, obviously.
Sell yourself, Ryan. Come on.
Video production, audio production, podcasts, obviously, it's in the name. Audiobooks, most spoken word content. I get a lot of inquiries about music, which is not my strong point, but I will point you in the right direction if you get in touch about that, because there is music studios in Murray as well. But yeah, anything spoken word. We've had people in doing like meditation recordings and stuff like that as well. Courses, I guess, if you wanted to record something for like an online course for your work.
I just have to get in touch with people and say, do you want to come on a podcast? And Ryan literally does everything else for me.
Yeah, man.
And I can confirm that this studio is the dog's bollocks. This is absolutely lovely.
Oh,
it's
I get
a really
so
nice
depressed
studio.
reading the Football Journal's comments though, because it's always like, oh, great episode, Lee. And it's like, there's no love for the producer anywhere, is there?
But yeah, please get in touch with Ryan. Please get in touch with myself. The feedback's been good on the Football Journal's episodes. Keep up the 5 stars. There's always a poll underneath my episodes. I get like 100 plays roughly in the first week on each episode, but I only ever get like 4 or 5 votes on the polls. This week's one is the Huntly 90s team the best ever team that played in the Highland League? Opinion on that, Chris? Yes or no? The Huntly 5 in a row team is the best ever Highland League team.
Is that official? I would say so.
That's the poll from my last episode.
Okay, right. Well, I know. I'd agree with that.
So my poll for this episode is going to be: how often do you check your balls? Honestly, it's going to be how often do you check your balls?
We're going to have to press the explicit content button. Yes.
Okay. We're going to give Chris's book a wee plug once it's out as well, and we'll get a wee link to your Instagram and all that kind of stuff as well. Final question: one penalty to save your life. Who takes the penalty?
Do you need to ask me that?
Yeah,
Stephen Dobby. Stephen Dobby.
What was his penalty record like? Was it pretty good?
I don't know exactly what it was, but I imagine it was because he was pretty spot on. He did score a penalty in his testimonial game, his last ever goal at Palmerston.
Yeah.
It wasn't a penalty, but Scott Brown brought him down. He kind of wrestled him to ground just so he could give him a penalty. But he did score a lot of penalties and a lot of free kicks.
Yeah.
Stephen Dobby, I trust him in my life.
Fantastic. Excellent, Chris. Thanks for your time.
No worries. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Ryan. I've thoroughly enjoyed that.
Brilliant.